won the NAFIPS Best PhD Thesis Award a few years ago in fuzzy systems, Tim Arnett. And interestingly, just one more minute, there is a little YouTube video. What is fuzzy logic? That Tim developed as assignment one of my classes way back about 10 years ago that has got over 550,000 views. So it's one of the most popular fuzzy logic little clips out there. So again, congratulations, Tim, and we appreciate all of what you do. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Kelly. Much too flattering, but especially if you go and watch that video, it's actually slightly embarrassing. I should make an updated one. That was made during my first year of grad school, so you know, the detail that video goes into reflects that. So, like others have said, I'm the main organizer of our XFC Explainable Fuzzy Challenge. This is a competition that is actually, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. XFC is a competition for any university level student. We encourage teams to have students from any major, and what they do is they create fuzzy-based agents to play a Python video game called Kessler. It's similar to the Asteroids Atari game, which we saw a video that Barnabas was sharing from a previous year. This is another video from last year's competition showing some of the solutions. We had a number of teams last year that were international as well. This competition is open to any university level student internationally as well. So we had teams from Japan, 2 from Canada, 1 from the US. We hope to have quite a few more this year. We are having a kickoff seminar this Friday, and if you're interested in that, reach out to the organizers here and they can put you in contact with me. I'll also have my email address up at the end of the presentation so you can contact me directly. But it's a lot of fun. It's also challenging for the students. They get to learn a lot of things, as well as some useful hard skills like coding and repository management, things like that. So we'll get back to the topic of the talk for today, which is the paper we had in CES last year, which is formal verification of a fuzzy-based XAI for strategic combat game. And I want to highlight that this is a toy problem that we developed, you know, similar to the homicidal chauffeur problem, where we want these toy proxy problems that are analogous to another problem of interest, but we want to be able to publish and show certain methodological structures that we couldn't in other applications. So a brief intro, why do we want explainability? You know, this entire webinar has gone over that, but the main thing is that we want human oversight over these AI and ML models that we're creating. So we want to make sure that they're actually doing what we want, and we want to understand them. Thales in particular, the company I work for, by the way, why do we want XAI? Well, we've seen that black box and non-explainable models have shown significant weaknesses in practice. Kelly mentioned brittleness and hallucinations. Those are some of the big ones, but also certification standards. That's one of the sticking points for us. You know, if we need to meet certain certification standards, that precludes use of some of these methods that are black boxes. And so towards that, we develop and maintain our true AI toolkit, which is genetic fuzzy tree based. And we developed this in order to bridge that gap in explainability, transparency, verification, and performance capabilities. So we want to be on the Pareto front somewhere in between the performance of, you know, large, deep neural networks and something like a more white box approach, like a decision tree. We want to be somewhere in the middle. The particular application I'm talking about today, and I'm going to talk about some other real world applications at the end. So I'm going to get through the StarCraft stuff a little bit more quickly. But we use StarCraft 2, the video game, for those of you that are familiar. This is a real-time strategy game that is utilized somewhat widely in reinforcement learning circles. And the idea of the game is that you're harvesting resources, you're building bases, you then build armies, and you defeat the enemy's base / army. So there's a lot of things going on with regards to planning, autonomy and control, things like that. And it has a relatively large state and action space, especially compared to other games that we've seen used for RL applications like Go and chess. And it has a large player base. One of the other reasons it gets used is, well, they developed an API that makes it very easy to develop RL-based solutions for. There are a number of different, I'm not a StarCraft 2 player, others in the office are, I don't remember what it's called, but there are different types of armies or classes you can have. You can have humans, you can have Zergs, and there are others, which I don't even remember. But the important thing is that we have multiple units that have different capabilities. We have a medic and a marine, which are human units. The medic is a support unit, and it can expend energy to heal or transfer that energy to a combat unit. The marine is the human combat unit that we're using. It can attack other military units. And then we have a roach, which is our hostile combat unit. And it has a ranged attack on ground targets. So StarCraft 2, there's if you were developing an AI solution to play the entire game, it would be quite complex. This is a breakdown of what that example tree might look like, where we're getting state information from the game. We're building our situational awareness picture, and what that means is we're processing all the raw data and distilling that down into information that can be used by the model, whether that's sensor fusion or some other processing. Then it would go to our high-level control actions, which can involve things like base building, economy control, then down to low level, which gets into unit control, army control, and then back to the client manager, which sends the commands back to the game. One reason I'm highlighting this is that this represents our overall OODA loop structure that we tend to use for these types of problems. OODA is a paradigm invented by John Boyd, a former U.S. Air Force pilot. And it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And so that is the overall structure that we tend to lay out for these problems. So you could create this whole thing and just let it learn what it learns by interacting with the game. You could get high performance. We've seen this in other applications over your training and test sets. However, let's say that the customer has requirements that we must adhere to. An example of this would be, say you have a combat unit that can inflict damage on friendly units. Well, you want to make sure that doesn't happen. So you say something like never damage friendly units with large area effects. A more specific one might be, say, medics shall not expend energy resources on units that are currently not being targeted and can withstand one volley at the current health from an approaching threat if the medic is not at full energy. One reason why we want specifications like this is, well, certainly towards certification standards, but in the context of things like military operations, safety is paramount. You want to make sure that not only are you doing things that are effective, but you want to make sure that everybody is safe doing it. So that was one of the main focuses for this. And again, this is a toy problem. And we're only looking at one little aspect of the game. The tree structure that we created for this, though, is 4 FISs. These red hexagons are FISs, and the blue rectangles are inputs going into the FISs. So we have unit healing needs, which takes in the current unit damage intake rate and the current health of the unit. We also take in relative threat of the incoming hostiles and the distance of the new hostiles to our unit group. And that gets distilled into future group healing needs. Those both get combined into a future and present needs comparison. So it's really about prioritization. And then also our current medic energy gets combined with that into a priority level. And that priority level determines which unit you're actually going to heal. So another aspect of this is formal verification. And formal verification is the application of formal methods towards verifying that your system does what it's supposed to. What these are showing are a counterexample from a model checker called JKind. That's not important. I can talk to you more offline about that if anybody has questions. But the takeaway here is that using these formal methods tools, we can identify if we violate those behavioral specifications based on the model that we're given. And in fact, we do. We do violate that specification. If I can go back a couple slides, I realized I was not in presenter view. I'm sorry. This specification about behavior, we can encode that in a formal language and then check our created GFT against that. And what we found is that with the rules and parameters that we had in that GFT, we do in fact violate that requirement. And we get this counterexample stating exactly where that happens. So these values for all of these variables are a case where that specification is being violated. So we generated a test scenario to investigate this. We have Marine A and Marine B. We have two Marines. One has half health, a little less than half health. One has full health, and our medic, which has relatively low energy and health. And they're going to be attacked by an enemy combat unit, this Roach, which comes in from the side. And it is attacking this Marine. The GFT as constructed is such that the medic does not appropriately prioritize the correct Marine such that neither one of them can survive the volley from the attacking Roach. It expends energy prematurely and the squad is defeated. So based on the fact that our GFT is transparent and explainable, we can go in and actually investigate what it's doing in those cases and potentially correct the actions. We can either do this manually or maybe through another machine learning process, which we've done in the past. But we've found out that the unit healing needs FIS had two rules that were the culprits for violating the specification. And it may have been that we didn't have enough coverage in our training set to identify that. Regardless, though, we can identify that and then perform correcting actions. So we do this and then we run formal verification on it again and show that there are no counterexamples. And what this means is that our GFT is guaranteed to always meet that specification about its behavior. Now, of course, you may want other specifications. In fact, in a real system, you have a number of these that get flowed down from system requirements. But again, this is just a toy problem showing off a capability. And we have the other case where if the Roach targets the other Marine, we can see that there are cases where the original GFT still fails and our forces are defeated versus a case where it makes the correct decision in prioritization and again meets objectives and our squad survives. So in conclusion for the StarCraft 2 application, the focus was on prioritization of tasks. Requirements were constructed to ensure that the medic behavior is correct. We found violations and then they were corrected by inspection of our GFT, and that was enabled by both the explainability and the model transparency. I do want to briefly talk about other work that we do, and specifically for real world applications. Not that StarCraft 2 isn't a great game, but we want to do things that are a little bit more important. And so we do use and apply the same methodology using our toolkit for things like mission planning and routing, autonomy and control, and predictive analytics, especially for applications that are safety critical and require meeting certification standards. I'm running out of time, so the one I'm going to highlight is, oops, I went the wrong way. This application, which was developed using our toolkit, this is an intention translator for a mission planning tool called Combi, and it's a bidirectional translator for routing. And what this means is that it takes pilot intentions and a fuzzy system uses those pilot intentions and translates them into parameters that are used by our routing algorithms to generate routes that meet all requirements. And we have fuzzy systems that are then analyzing and then translating that analysis in an interpretable way to the human operator. So you can request a route with certain characteristics, And then it will spit back a route saying, yes, here's a route, it meets your requirements, and it has these characteristics that are directly interpretable by the human user. So, it's not only toy problems, we're actually creating these things that are, going to be going on real platforms. So that is I know, a fire hose for a lot of different topics. But if you're interested in hearing more about our capabilities in the toolkit, you can contact me. I'm tim.arnett@defense.us.talesgroup.com. And also Nick Ernest, who is the product line architect and in fact the chief architect in our office. And with that, I will conclude. Again, if you have questions about this or the Explainable Fuzzy Challenge competition, please contact me. You can contact me at this email address, or you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, or potentially through the organizers for the webinar. And with that, I will take any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you very much, Tim. We have a question here from one of our attendees. You've raised your hand, Chikizi. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Please go ahead with your question. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tim, for your excellent presentation and very insightful. And thank you to the previous presenters too. I've really kind of found this session very, very insightful. A quick question on slide 5. You made mention of setting these priority levels. Yeah, thank you. Let me ask, in terms of setting these priority levels by which the system tries to make the best decisions that covers the criteria that has been set or the criteria to meet. Could these priority levels also be adaptive in terms of potentially where certain circumstances change and it tries to reorganize this and identify the best that could stand out as a priority? Could you share more on this? Thank you.
Sure. Let me make sure I understood the question correctly. So are you asking about the thresholding in particular, if that could be changed, or are you asking?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Could it be adaptive?
Yeah, absolutely. These thresholds were completely arbitrary. And we've done things exactly like that in the past, where a priority level is adaptive or affected by other things. So right now, you see the priority level is taking in all of these other things along with current kinetic energy. What we do in a lot of cases for different strategies, and by strategies, I mean the layers in our OODA loop. So let's say low-level control. Let's say you have a number of discrete strategies you want to employ. A lot of times we'll use relative thresholding between different strategies. So it's effectively scoring and taking the max score. And the reason for that is the confluence of those multiple FISs gives you a much more complex decision boundary as opposed to simple thresholding. So we absolutely do things like that. And yeah, you could do a lot of things here with dynamic priority levels. Priority levels could be informed by some completely different process, from the strategic level even, from a level higher where you're saying, well, we don't necessarily care about Army effectiveness, let's say. We've identified that base building is a way to just win the game outright. That could get translated down through Army composition or some other thing where priority then is completely different. So yeah, absolutely, it could be dynamic.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a question, Tim, on, you represent Thales. It's a big company. Could you say something in general about Thales, about true AI, and the importance that Thales faces as a big industry on explainability? Because they are a leader in the field of pushing the agenda of explainability, as opposed to many of our other large industries that have been basically funding and pushing for brittle AI. So why does Thales stand out?
Yeah, so there are a number of things here. One of the biggest things is we work a lot with DoD. So in defense, in particular, they are very reticent, for good reason, to put these more advanced AI ML models on actual platforms because of both a lack of verification capability and a lack of human understandability of what the model is doing. And what that really comes down to is trust. We want to be able to trust these systems, that they will operate as intended, in some cases, always, which is a very strict requirement to meet. But more than that, they want to ensure that we're not putting something on these platforms that will be detrimental to our own forces. And so towards that, we've identified that a lot of the technologies that are being developed are the technologies for creating and optimizing these systems are far outpacing the methods that we have for inspecting them, for verifying them, and making sure that not only are they highly performant, but that they're safe. Safety is more important now than ever. People are becoming much more risk averse, which is, I'm not going to comment on whether that's good or bad, but that's the reality of the situation. And so as a company, we've identified that it's not enough to just create highly performant systems, but they also need to have these qualities as well.